more like a gentleman and a philosopher than an artist. That was Giorgio Vasari's memorable verdict on Ambrogio Lorenzetti. Vasari was writing more than 2 centuries after the painter's lifetime, so his biography must be handled carefully. But the phrase captures something real. Lorenzetti did not merely decorate walls. He made pictures think. He turned ethics into characters, law into movement, and the fate of an entire republic into a city we can enter with our eyes. This is the story of an artist documented between 1319 and 1348, and of one extraordinary room in Siena's Palazzo Pubblico. On its walls, peace is not an abstraction. It becomes safe roads, open workshops, cultivated fields, and citizens bound together by justice. Tyranny is not just a wicked ruler. It becomes fear, broken buildings, violence, and a countryside no one can safely cross. 7 centuries later, Lorenzetti's question still feels urgent. What does government actually do to everyday life? We will begin with Siena's commercial and political golden age. Follow Lorenzetti's documented encounters with Florence. Compare his solid, searching art with Simone Martini's lyrical elegance. Enter the Hall of the Nine to decode good and bad government. Examine his daring experiments with pictorial space. And in with the Black Death, modern conservation, and the new scholarship that is restoring Siena to the center of early European painting. First, the city that made this art possible. 14th-century Siena, a republic of merchants, bankers, pilgrims, rival families, and enormous civic ambition. Siena stood on the Via Francigena, the great route carrying travelers, goods, and ideas between northern Europe and Rome. Its bankers operated far beyond Tuscany. Its black and white cathedral and shell-shaped Piazza del Campo announced a city confident enough to compete with Florence not only in wealth, but in beauty. From 1287 to 1355, executive power was held by the Nine, magistrates drawn largely from the mercantile elite. Their regime was oligarchic, not democratic in a modern sense, and it faced factional tension, war, and inequality. Yet its relative continuity supported ambitious streets, public buildings, and art. The Palazzo Pubblico was designed as the visible heart of the commune, government made architectural. Lorenzetti grew within Siena's traditions, but his career also crossed civic borders. Florence became not a simple teacher, but one part of a wider Tuscan conversation. His earliest signed and dated work is the Madonna and Child of 1319, now associated with Vico Elevate near Florence. At first glance, the gold ground belongs to an older sacred world. But look at the bodies. The child has weight. The Virgin's hands support him rather than merely display him. Her grave face suggests that tenderness and foreknowledge can occupy the same moment. It is tempting to call this a clean break from medieval art, but that is too simple. Lorenzetti's achievement came from making gold, line, color, volume, and emotion work together. Recent museum exhibitions have emphasized precisely this. Sienese painters did not abandon their inheritance. They transformed it. Documents place Ambrogio in Florence in 1321. In 1327, he enrolled in the city's Guild of Doctors and Apothecaries, the professional body to which painters belonged because pigments and medicines shared a world of minerals, plants, recipes, and trade. He certainly encountered the force of Giotto's revolution, figures that stand, bend, grieve, and occupy believable settings. But influence did not travel in one direction. Siena, Florence, Assisi, Naples, Avignon, and the trade routes beyond Italy formed an interconnected artistic network. There is no firm evidence that Ambrogio personally studied Pliny or anticipated modern humanism in a formal scholarly program. What the works do prove is sustained curiosity about bodies, buildings, narrative, materials, and the civic uses of images. To sharpen Lorenzetti's character, he is often paired with Siena's other great master, Simone Martini, the philosopher beside the poet. The contrast is illuminating, provided we do not turn it into a cage. Simone's art can feel musical. Long lines, jeweled surfaces, aristocratic gestures, and figures whose emotion flashes through the smallest tilt of a hand. Ambrogio often gives us heavier bodies, more architectural pressure, and a stronger appetite for cause and effect. Yet Simone could be psychologically acute, and Ambrogio could be exquisitely decorative. Both belong to a collaborative Sienese culture of painters, metalworkers, manuscript illuminators, textile makers, patrons, and clergy. The major Met and National Gallery exhibition of 2024 and 2025 made this point powerfully. Siena's art was at once intensely local and internationally connected, and its experiments helped redefine painting across Europe. Compare Simone Martini and Lippo Memmi's Annunciation of 1333 with Ambrogio's version of 1344. In Simone's painting, Gabriel seems to arrive like a gust of wind. His cloak flies, the gilded words of greeting cross the panel, and Mary recoils in alarm. In Ambrogio's painting, the moment is quieter. Mary has moved toward acceptance. The angel bows with such physical weight that flight seems almost impossible. The tiled floor and marble throne create a chamber for bodies, not just a pattern behind them. One painting makes revelation feel like a brilliant interruption. The other makes it feel like a decision entering the material world. Neither is more advanced in every sense. There are different solutions to the problem of making the invisible visible. Then came Lorenzetti's most demanding commission, not an altarpiece, but a political environment built around the people exercising power. In 1338, with payments continuing into 1339, Ambrogio painted 3 walls of the room where the 9 conducted Siena's government. Today it is called the Sala della Pace, the Hall of Peace, as well as the Sala dei Nove. The cycle is not simply a set of pictures. Inscriptions beneath the frescoes form a poem of 62 lines, directing the viewer from justice and the common good towards civic flourishing, then across to tyranny and ruin. Image and text were designed to instruct each other. The magistrates did not look at this lesson occasionally. They worked inside it. Every meeting took place under the consequences of their choices. The room was therefore a machine of civic memory, law, virtue, fear, hope, and accountability arranged at architectural scale. The prosperous city is not a portrait of perfection frozen in place. It is a web of actions. Masons raise a building. Shopkeepers display goods. Teachers and pupils occupy a school. Pack animals move through narrow streets. Weddings, work, exchange, and conversation overlap without collapsing into chaos. Near the center, a group performs a round dance. They were long described simply as maidens, but costume historians have argued that some or all may be young men or professional entertainers. Their exact identity remains debated. What matters visually is coordinated movement, separate bodies holding a common rhythm. Like the chord carried by Siena's citizens in the allegory, the dance turns plurality into concord without erasing difference. Beyond the gate, the cantato unfolds as an immense field of interdependence. Farmers plow, sow, harvest, thresh, and carry produce toward the city. Travelers ride under the winged figure of security, who holds a gallows and a scroll promising that people may go freely and without fear. This is not nature untouched by politics. It is land organized by roads, labor, seasons, property, and protection. Nor is it a statistically accurate map of Siena's territory. It is a persuasive image of what public order should make possible. The city needs the countryside. The countryside needs safe access to the city. Prosperity is shown as circulation. Across the room, bad government reverses every relationship. Tyranny sits enthroned with horns, fangs, and crossed eyes, surrounded by cruelty, treason, fraud, fury, division, and war. Justice lies bound at his feet. In the city, masonry cracks, violence replaces exchange, and construction gives way to destruction. Outside the walls, fields burn, and armed men dominate the road. The fresco's warning is more subtle than bad leaders are monsters. Tyranny succeeds when justice is disabled, shared truth fractures, and citizens can no longer trust the systems connecting them. Lorenzetti makes political failure visible as a failure of relationships. Peace is not passivity here. It is the hard-won condition that lets work, learning, travel, and ordinary pleasure continue. Lorenzetti's political intelligence was inseparable from his experiments in how pictures construct space and in how viewers believe what they see. The tiled pavement in the 1344 Annunciation is famous because many receding lines appear to converge near a central point. Older histories sometimes called it fully developed one-point perspective, achieved almost a century before Brunelleschi and Alberti. The Pinacoteca Nazionale di Siena describes it more carefully as an extremely advanced but still empirical perspective. New mathematical analysis published in 2026 goes further. The floor creates a convincing depth effect from normal viewing distance, but the tile diagonals do not obey the geometry of a later, rigorously unified construction. That correction does not diminish Lorenzetti. It makes the painting more interesting. He was not secretly applying a 15th-century formula. He was testing how converging lines, scale, overlap, color, and solid figures could persuade the eye before the rules were standardized. His curiosity also reached beyond conventional painting. Siena's records and the museum identify a lost mappamondo made for the Palazzo Pubblico in 1344, a large painted disc of parchment showing the Sienese state and the known world. Its former location gave the Great Council Chamber the name Sala del Mappamondo. Later descriptions and marks on the wall suggest that the disc could turn around a central pivot. We should resist converting Ambrogio into a modern engineer or calling him a direct Leonardo before Leonardo. But the commission reveals an artist trusted to organize geographic knowledge as a public image. Fresco, panel, map, poem, architecture, and government belong to one visual culture. For Lorenzetti, representing the world was a civic act. At the height of that achievement, the documentary trail ends amid one of the most devastating catastrophes in European history. Ambrogio made his will in 1348. Siena was then struck by the Black Death, which killed an enormous portion of the population and shattered workshops, families, institutions, and patronage. Ambrogio and his brother Pietro are both presumed to have died during the epidemic, but the surviving documents do not allow us to narrate their final days with certainty. Even Ambrogio's birth around 1290 is an estimate. The secure record begins with the signed painting of 1319. This distinction matters. Responsible history separates evidence from probability. The plague did not instantly end all Sienese art, but it broke the exceptional concentration of people and projects that had defined the first half of the century. A century later, the sculptor Lorenzo Ghiberti remembered Ambrogio as a most famous and singular master, a most perfect master, and a man of great intellect. Yet later Renaissance history was often written as a triumphal road leading through Florence. Siena became elegant background. Ambrogio became a precursor to someone else. Current scholarship is undoing that hierarchy. The 2024 to 2025 exhibition Siena, the rise of painting reunited works scattered for centuries and presented Duccio, Simone Martini, Pietro, and Ambrogio Lorenzetti as makers of new emotional, spatial, and narrative possibilities, not an isolated detour, but a formative chapter in Western painting. The frescoes themselves remain vulnerable. A conservation campaign begun by the city of Siena in 2021 found the cycle generally stable, but identified localized salt efflorescence, separation, and loss of cohesion in painted plaster. Diagnosis expanded into a full restoration program. Cleaning tests were carried out in 2024, and in 2025 specialists evaluated laser methods alongside chemical approaches for removing oxalate films while protecting original organic materials. That is the newest chapter in the work's history. Good government now means caring for the image of good government. The walls ask us to look beyond slogans. Are roads safe? Can people work, learn, trade, travel, and celebrate? Is justice active or merely displayed? Who is bound into the common good, and who is left outside it? Lorenzetti's masterpiece offers no simple recipe. It offers a way of seeing. Government becomes visible in the distance between a school and a battlefield, between an open gate and an ambush, between citizens sharing a rhythm and justice lying bound. The frescoes survive because each generation chooses to preserve, question, and reinterpret them. And perhaps that is their final lesson. The common good is never a finished picture. Is a work continuously made and continuously at risk?